Hello YouTube, my name is Zap, and for a while I've been wanting to start up my own YouTube channel, and I thought what better time to begin than with some free content. So I'm here with a last minute ban list prediction slash wish list, and I'll be going over every card I think needs to either get slammed with the ban hammer or released back into the wild. So we'll start the list with the ban section. I think everyone kind of knows what should be coming up. Every YouTuber around the world has been saying the exact same thing, and that is that Imperial Order needs to get banned. This card is far too obnoxious and can win games by itself, almost regardless of how much of a brick the rest of your hand is. I have no idea what huff Konami was smoking when they decided that increasing the amount of burn damage from nothing to almost nothing was enough to balance it out, but clearly they just didn't do much testing before they brought it back. It's also completely unsearchable and a one-of, so not only is it a win the game button, but it's not even one your opponent can really plan for, and so all it ends up doing is tilting everyone who has to play against it. Next up is Artifact Scythe. Either Scythe or Dagda needs to go, and I think Scythe is definitely the correct choice. Dagda simply enables this card, but some decks are perfectly capable of using it even without Dagda, like current virtual decks for instance. Like Io, locking the opponent out of an entire game mechanic for a turn is way too strong, considering it's a mechanic that for at least the last 10 years has pretty much been a staple of the game. The extra deck in modern times has basically become a toolbox by which pretty much all decks look to for their utility and removal, so halting summoning of any kind from the extra has essentially become to mean skip your opponent's turn. If Dagda went, I'd be reasonably happy, but Scythe is easily the bigger problem. Next up, we have Harpy's Featherstorm, third on the list of bullshit turn skips. The Trilust deck has been around for a long time, and honestly, as someone who's played it since it came out, the deck kind of sucks. It's surprisingly inconsistent in opening its full combo, and if it doesn't, then the plays it makes are actually quite fragile and lose to most hand traps. Most of the less than ideal hands rely on resolving a Tri-Brigade effect to bring out either a Shuraig or Samorg, so pretty much any Veiler or Imperm, and a lot of the time their turn just ends. This is where Featherstorm comes in. Like Io, again, Featherstorm can sometimes basically just win you games on its own, even with a brickfest of a hand. If you have Featherstorm but can't put up a meaningful board or your plays get interrupted, no bother, just make Nightingale or Samorg, sit on it until the next turn. Worst case, you make Zeus. Best case, you resolve Samorg in their end phase and just go off. Like the previous two entries on the list, Featherstorm locks your opponent out of arguably the most essential game mechanic for an entire turn, negating all monster effects, even in the hand and graveyard, and the banish zone stops basically every deck from playing, barring Invoked, Opening, Alistair, Invoker, and Fusion Destiny, but not too many of us are that good at the game. That's not the end of the turn skips. We finally have Protoss. Even though Protoss is the only good Sword Soul card, it is a little bit too powerful. Being able to shut off any attribute in the game from summoning just takes us all back to the days of VFD, and no one wants any of that. The final card on my list for the Banhammer is Verte down here, and I think everyone expects this to happen as well. It's not as obnoxious as the other four cards here, but in Yu-Gi-Oh! There aren't many worse feelings than Veilering one monster, Imperming another, and having your opponent look at you like Blofeld stroking a cat and just mushing both of their dudes into a Verte, making a Dryden with an actual attack stat and a Pot of Greed for the next turn. Now, onto the limited section, and there are only two cards I put here, being Meltdown and Recital Starling, these two right here. I actually don't personally think Recital needs to get hit, because, like I said, I think the deck's not as good as people think. But a lot of people seem to think it is good for some reason, so I imagine this will happen anyway. As for Meltdown, not being able to respond when your opponent summons their Drool-soaked Mechaba or Winder is a little bit too strong, especially when they can activate cards in response to their own summon for some reason, and you just have to sit there in timeout. Now, onto the semi-limits. There are a fair few cards that anyone could put on this list that could definitely go back to 2. Raigeki, Tsuchinoko, Jackalope, are probably not both dangers. Pankratops, Morphing Jar. There are so many cards at 1 right now that haven't really been played since the wheel was invented, but I picked out a few that I thought were just most likely, as well as a few that I thought needed to go to 3 as well. Depending on how severe this ban list ends up being, Tri-Brigade I can 100% see being quite a good deck in a few weeks, possibly even with the Brave token package. And I wouldn't be surprised to see just a little hit to the consistency here with Fractal to 2, as well as another small hit to Tri-Lusk as well. But if this list is on the minor side, then I admit this would probably not be needed. And the other card I see going to 2 is Emergence. Protoss Turbo featuring Sword Soul has shown itself to be the best deck in the last few weeks, and I think that it needs a small consistency hit with either Emergence or Moye, maybe both. But now, for the cards that could come to 2 from Limited, I think 1 is Trickstar Lightstage. This is probably a weird pick, and realistically there are a bunch of cards that could go to 2 and wouldn't make any of their decks more playable, but I thought this had the highest chance of doing that. After Light Stage, we have Prank Kid's Cat. Cat to 1 hit the deck a lot harder than I think a lot of people were expecting, and since they have seen this deck dominate the OCG with the new Brave token package, I wouldn't be surprised to see them bring this back to promote their next product. I'm also a huge Prank fan, so this is a bit of a wish. Finally, we have the Unlimits, and to be honest, a lot of the cards I said could come back to 2, could go back to 3, and nothing would change, maybe with the exception of the Dangers, provided both came back. But I decided to go with what I thought was most likely, which, as usual, consists of every card currently at 2, except for Malicious. E-Telly, Nessie, and Skullcrabat could all come back to 3, and probably not do anything. I wanted to put one Danger on this list, and I thought Nessie to 3 was for the most plausible. As for Skullcrabat, no one has played the best deck for years, and until Electromite comes back, they probably never will. E-Telly, honestly, probably doesn't need to come back, and it would be an unnecessary boost for Virtual World, but I can see Konami wanting to push their new product, so everyone won't just throw out every card that doesn't say Brave token, or whatever the TCG localization was. So that was my list. I hope you all agree. Let me know if there's anything you think could come back, as well as any advice or feedback. There might be a little bit of a wait after this video, but I just wanted to make sure I got it out before the ban list dropped. Once I start again, I'm hoping to put up about 3 videos a week with the intention to begin streaming once it picks up a bit. So make sure to subscribe so you get notified when my next video comes out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.